If you stopped working today, how long would your money last? Most people say they need millions to retire. My friend quit working at 29 with $600,000. No lottery, no inheritance, just a plan. So, was he financially free or one mistake away from going broke? His name is Dylan, and he retired 8 years ago. He wasn't rich, didn't have a massive salary, and didn't suddenly come into money. What he and his wife did was simple, but rare. They chose to build assets instead of upgrading their lifestyle. They lived below their means, reinvested whenever possible, and never assumed the next paycheck would fix their mistakes. Dylan didn't earn more than most people. He just wasted less. Here's what that actually looked like. While their friends upgraded to bigger houses, Dylan and his wife stayed in their modest home. When coworkers financed new cars every few years, they kept driving the same reliable vehicle. They ate out occasionally, but cooking at home was the norm. This wasn't deprivation, it was intentionality. Every dollar that came in was assigned a job, living expenses, investments, or deliberate enjoyment. The psychological difference is enormous. Most people experience lifestyle inflation without even noticing it. You get a raise, your rent goes up, you earn more, you eat out more, your income climbs, but so does your baseline. You end up on a treadmill running faster, but never actually getting ahead. Dylan stepped off that treadmill early, and that choice compounded over decades. But here's the part most people never see. Staying on that path wasn't always easy. There were years when the market dropped hard, years when friends looked richer on paper, years when it felt like he was sacrificing comfort for a future that might never arrive. That doubt hits almost everyone who tries to live this way. The difference is that Dylan didn't panic when those moments came. He stayed consistent. What most people don't realize is that consistency feels invisible while you're doing it. There's no applause for driving the same car another year, no celebration for skipping an unnecessary upgrade. It feels small in the moment, but small decisions stack quietly. 1 year becomes 5, 5 becomes 15, and suddenly the gap between you and everyone else isn't dramatic, it's structural. That's how financial independence actually forms, not through big wins, through quiet discipline repeated long enough that it stops feeling like discipline at all. This isn't about being married, having a high income, or getting lucky with investments. Financial freedom comes down to one thing: margin. If money leaves your account as fast as it arrives, income alone won't save you. Freedom isn't about how much you make, it's about how much room you create. Think about it this way: two people earn $70,000 a year. One spends $68,000, the other spends $55,000. After 10 years, the difference isn't just the savings, it's the options, the breathing room, the ability to walk away from a bad situation without panic. Here's what margin really buys you: time. Time to think, time to adapt, time to avoid bad decisions made under pressure. Here's the part people ignore. Most financial advice focuses on earning more, but it doesn't solve the core problem if spending rises in lockstep. You can make $200,000 a year and still live paycheck to paycheck if your expenses match your income. Warren Buffett once said, "Do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving." That's margin in one sentence. Dylan understood this instinctively. In the US, only about 10% of workers retire before age 60. The average retirement age sits in the mid-60s. Early retirement isn't common, which is exactly why stories like Dylan's stand out. And here's the uncomfortable truth: most people don't retire late because they have to. They retire late because they drifted. They never chose a direction. They just reacted to promotions, expenses, expectations, and habits. Years pass, income rises, but so does dependence on that income. Margin breaks that cycle. It turns your life from reactive to intentional. And once you feel that shift, it's hard to go back. There's a common rule in personal finance called the 25 times rule, based on research known as the Trinity study. The concept is straightforward. Take your yearly expenses and multiply by 25. That's roughly the amount invested you'd need to support long-term withdrawals. For example, someone spends $4,000 per month. That's $48,000 per year. Multiply that by 25 and you get around $1.2 million. This isn't guesswork, it's math. The Trinity study looked at decades of market history and found that withdrawing about 4% annually from a balanced portfolio gave retirees a strong chance of not running out of money. This gives you something most people never have, a clear target. But numbers alone don't tell the whole story, because real life doesn't follow clean formulas. The rule isn't meant to be perfect. It's meant to be directional. It gives you a framework, so you stop guessing and start planning. Most people never calculate their number. They just hope things will work out eventually. But hope isn't a retirement strategy. Clarity is. And once you know your number, every financial decision starts to make more sense. Here's why Dylan's story sounds unusual. He retired with only $600,000, roughly half of the traditional target, and there was a moment when that decision almost backfired. A few years into retirement, the market dropped sharply. His portfolio shrank. Headlines were full of fear. People around him went back to work. For a moment, he wondered if he had made a mistake. This is where most plans break, not in spreadsheets and emotions. What saved him wasn't luck, it was structure. He had low expenses, no mortgage, paid off cars, a modest lifestyle by design. His annual spending was closer to $30,000 than $60,000. At $30,000 per year, the 25 times rule suggests he'd need around $750,000. He had $600,000. Close, but not perfect. So he adapted. He built small income streams to bridge the gap. A YouTube channel that slowly brought in a few $100s a month, light consulting work, maybe 10 hours monthly, not enough to live on, enough to stabilize the system. This is the shift most people miss. Dylan didn't retire from working. He retired from needing permission to live his life. That's a very different kind of freedom. Traditional retirement says you stop working when your money replaces your income, but real independence often looks different. It's when your expenses are low enough and your options wide enough that work becomes a choice, not a requirement. Dylan didn't wake up with perfect security. He woke up with enough flexibility that his decisions were driven by preference, not fear. And that's usually the real goal people are chasing, not a number, but control. If you want to shorten your own path to financial independence, the steps aren't glamorous, but they work. First, reduce fixed expenses, not dramatically, just enough to create margin. Housing, subscriptions, lifestyle creep, that's where most freedom leaks out. Second, invest consistently, not when markets feel safe, not when headlines sound optimistic. Consistency beats timing. Third, build an extra income stream. Not to get rich, to reduce fragility. When you rely on one income, you're exposed. When you have 2 or 3, even small ones, your decisions improve. Income streams don't just grow your money, they calm your mind. Because the real power of financial independence isn't visible in your bank account. It shows up in your decisions. You negotiate differently, you tolerate less nonsense, you take opportunities you'd normally avoid because you're not desperate for stability anymore. Money isn't just a resource, it's leverage over your own time. And once you understand that, the process stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like strategy. Retiring at $600,000 wasn't genius, and it wasn't reckless. It was disciplined, planned, flexible. The people who fail at financial independence usually don't fail because of math. They fail because they chase status, react emotionally, or compare themselves to others. Dylan didn't. He had his own scoreboard, and it wasn't about appearances, it was about control, because retirement isn't about escaping work, it's about owning your time. If you had to retire tomorrow, what number would you actually need? Run the math. Know your yearly expenses multiplied by 25, start from there. And if you want to see the 5 things I personally did to finally stop wasting money, click the video on your screen now. I'll walk you through the changes that actually made a difference. Do the boring stuff. It works.